Hello everyone and welcome back to Game Week 2 of the PTC Therapeutics Premiership, where you join myself, Ryan Sipple, for this game between Newcastle United Foundation and Sevenoaks PFC. Scheduled for a 10:25 kickoff. We have done exactly that. Our referee in the centre, Paul Pearson. As Sevenoaks still looking for that first win across the 23-24 campaign. Newcastle fared slightly better than that of their Kent rivals. Mixed weekends for both as well. So Newcastle started with an unfortunate 4-2 defeat to Aspire yesterday. Aspire, of course, in pursuit of a second successive Premiership crown. That finished 4-2. That was before a very entertaining 1-1 draw with very similarly matched Leeds Chariots. So this is the first game of the day for Newcastle. Currently residing in 7th in the table as Fisher picks out Albie Morris on the left-hand side. Go through the teams. Designated goalkeeper for Newcastle United is Ethan Fisher, the number 10, wearing that bright pink goalkeeper jersey. Currently the most defensive of the four players is Lee Armstrong. Wide attacking players in captain Ollie Crawshaw and number 5 Albie Morris. For Sevenoaks, in goal they have Greg Baxter. In front of him, Kyle Alexander, Miles Miller and Harry Beswick. In a recent turn of events, I'm now delighted to be joined on commentary for the first time that we've commentated together since the World Cup final. Mr. Charlie McClellan, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I mean, we're reunited since Australia, which feels like a lifetime ago now, but back to the National League, you got to love it, don't you?
Absolutely. It was brilliant day's action yesterday. Hoping for more of the same today. But as I was mentioning, mixed day, it's a difficult day for Sevenoaks, still in pursuit of that win in the 23-24 campaign. They started with a 1-1 draw against Throssels before a 4-0 defeat to Aspire, 0-0 deadlock with Nomad Knights. They played Manchester United later at 5-2.
Yeah, I watched both Sevenoaks games yesterday, and they were really, I think, lots to take credit with in the terms of defensively. They were very good in the first half, I thought, against Aspire at the back, and they were very good against Nomad Knights at the back, but they're just lacking a little bit of creativity, aren't they? A little bit of flair going forward, and that's something they'll be looking to sort out.
It's that, as well as the individual errors, which I think they will hold their hands up to. Ethan Fisher now with the corner kick over to Albie Morris. Cleared off the line by Greg Baxter. Sevenoaks, across their 7 games, not including this one, have only scored 3 goals, one of which was an own goal. Only Harry Beswick and Greg Baxter with strikes to their name. On the flip side, Newcastle have been fairly prolific, certainly with regards to individual goal scorers. Sam Smith with 7 across this season. Ollie Crawshaw with 6, Fisher with 3, and Albie Morris with a single goal. But certainly on paper, Newcastle the more favourable to secure 3 points. Sevenoaks currently residing in 10th, very much considered the danger zone. Got Manchester United and Nomad Knights playing on Court A. They'll be right around that same area, so almost a 6-pointer at this very early stage of the season.
Yeah, you expect Sevenoaks to be a team that will be safe. You know, they seem to add well to their ranks in the summer with Jim Mason, you know, who impressed so many people last season, and they look to be not far away from being a good side, but as you said, just individual errors costing them. I think that's the same for Newcastle as well, you know, that yesterday they put in some really good individual performances, but then there's just little moments of lapses of concentration, and suddenly, you know, they concede a couple of goals in a few minutes against Aspire, and they just lose the game, and it's gone. And so Newcastle and Sevenoaks, both young teams, both teams with big futures, but they need to just cut some individual errors out of their games.
Fisher picks out Albie Morris. He's just trapped between Baxter and Alexander. They have to be very much aware that communication is so key between them. James Mason to our right, shouting instructions at his players. Albie Morris doing an effective job to just prevent that ball from leaving that final third. Alexander does brilliantly in the end, but Ethan Fisher quickly sweeps it out of play.
Yeah, really switched on. Newcastle attacking well, but being really cautious that there's no counter-attack opportunity for Sevenoaks. The Oaks really struggling to get out of their own half right now.
Yeah, I wonder if that's why Adam McAvoy has looked to the bench already. James Mason has just come on in place of number 10, Miles Miller. Unfortunate for Miller, had no real involvement. So hopefully James Mason can have a little bit more success. One of the things within that game against Aspire, particularly in which I was commentating with Colin Gordon, is the players that are isolated and attacking areas of the pitch. You look at Harry Bestwick at the moment, it's just having that anticipation and preparation, because the distribution of Baxter and Alexander, the ball can come in your vicinity so quickly, and that can very much be applied to Albie Morris there. Ollie Crawshaw firing the ball across the box, and had Albie Morris been a metre or two more advanced, he would have been there to meet the ball.
Yeah, that was really slick from Newcastle there. You know, Morris just caught maybe in two minds whether to go back and wait for the ball across that way or attack that back post. And you really want from those set pieces that back post being attacked, and so he'll be disappointed that he couldn't get himself on the score sheet there.
7.5 minutes played. Sevenoaks yet to break into the Newcastle half. Lee Armstrong, an observer for the first half's action so far. Mason back to Baxter, can't get the accuracy, so Crawshaw intercepts. I like that Mason's looking to pass back to Baxter. That's something that Colin Gordon was looking for. Just opens up the court a little bit more. Leeds did it really effectively in the first half against Villa Rockets earlier today.
Yeah, I remember listening to Colin, and he just called for, when they do get the ball, Sevenoaks defensively, just be a bit more composed, be calm, think about your options. And that's what Mason did there very well.
Mason. That is an error. Leads to Ollie Crawshaw at the back post, and Alexander adjusts brilliantly well, but once again, that individual error of James Mason giving away the ball presented a credible goal scoring opportunity to Newcastle United.
Yeah, getting some really nice slick moves around this penalty area, getting that ball moving quickly, one touch, two touch, and there it seems like a goal right now is looking inevitable. Nearly put the commentator's curse on it.
Yeah, just comes off that right hand post. It's Fisher, continues the attack. Worth noting that Newcastle United and Jamie Harrison have top goal scorer Sam Smith at their disposal should they wish to use him. No doubt he will have involvement across this game. Clearance from Baxter just nicks up off the front of Crawshaw's chair, too high. So a set ball will be contested now between Crawshaw and Alexander to resume play. Sorry, Crawshaw's just dropped off, so Fisher will have responsibility. don't think Armstrong has had a touch yet.
No, maybe it is. They should look to try and get him a little bit more involved, you know, create a bit more of a square on the ball, because if Crawshaw and Morris can just make that court a little bit bigger and start missing out Ethan Fisher every now and again for a longer pass from Armstrong, it could create a lot more opportunities for the ball to get moving, especially towards that back post.
I wonder if they're just looking for that 1-goal buffer before they experiment a little bit more, because obviously pushing Armstrong up would come with its associated risks and leave potential vulnerabilities in behind.
The thing you don't want is when you play against a team that's playing in such a pragmatic way, such as Sevenoaks right now, the one thing you don't want is to get into the late stage of this game 0-0, because every 5-10 minutes that passes is more encouragement from Sevenoaks that they can go on and win this game, and all they need is 1 goal to pick up what would be a crucial 3 points.
Armstrong, with one of his first involvements, plays an effective pass to Ollie Crawshaw, who advances from one side of the court to the other. Important that he maintains that concentration despite his relative isolation across the game so far. Jamie Harrison just talking to his captain Ollie Crawshaw, who resumed his position in the centre. Crawshaw comes off the front of James Mason's chair. The right decision from Paul Pearson as Mason and Alexander both drawn into that ball, not leaving the necessary 3 metres for play to continue. So an indirect free kick should be taken by one of Crawshaw or Fisher. They did this a few times yesterday, shaped up as if they were taking a boom-boom. They do take a boom-boom on that occasion. It just locks up, goes out on the left-hand side. I don't know how much football you watched yesterday, Charlie, but 3-4 occasions, both Aspire and Newcastle Teesside were shaping up to do a boom-boom shot and didn't execute the full movement, but it really confused the defenders of the opposition. It's something that obviously has gone into the planning for a number of teams. Yeah,
I mean, you can't blame Newcastle for trying it, though. It did come off rather spectacularly against Aspire, didn't it, for Newcastle yesterday? The boom-boom, it is incredibly impressive when it comes off. But yeah, just being a bit more intelligent with it. I did watch a lot of football yesterday. Got myself in bed nice and early last night and put on the WFA TV.
You're a fan of the individual streams, aren't you?
I am. It makes it incredibly easy to, especially with older grandparents and stuff that are trying to watch, being able to send them a link a couple of hours before so they can set it up.
Have that countdown as well. Click the notify me. Yeah, no, it's been a huge development to our National League streaming. I think on court, and Ethan Fisher finds the space to squeeze it past Baxter and Alexander, who were just sleeping in that passage of play. Really unfortunate for Sevenoaks. Happened so quickly. I just don't think they were set. Yeah, you shouldn't really be beating your near post from there. I know that they're trying to put themselves as far forward as possible to stop those balls across the area, but getting beat at your near post is the cardinal sin when you're defending in power chair football. That's really unfortunate for Adam McAvoy's side. Kyle Alexander just left the space in behind, so Newcastle United currently lead by 1-0. Ethan Fisher scores his 4th goal of the season. Resume their attacking intent here, but as we were saying, individually streaming the games, such an important development, just maximising the enjoyment and the viewing experience. Yeah, I know when we were in Sydney, you know, the way the streaming worked was absolutely incredible, and just bringing little elements of that, like replays and like the individual streaming into the domestic scene, just implementing it little by little, will eventually lead to this sport being the most watchable sport in the world. Yeah, that's one thing that's worth noting also, is the fact with the Sydney and the Fit for Power Chair Football World Cup, it was conducted by pretty much the Wheelchair Football Station, myself Alex, Jack Humphreys, you, Greg and more. So hopefully we can apply what we learned and what we created in Sydney and apply it here. Albie Morris from an attempt at goal. Crawshaw with a follow-up effort, couldn't quite get the connection to really trouble Kyle Alexander.
You can really tell that Newcastle have been working on set pieces a lot in this sort of 3-month gap that they've had between the last National League weekend, because every single one's looked dangerous and has looked creative, and I don't think they've used the same one more than once yet. It's been really impressive.
And that's another thing, without wanting to reference the World Cup yet again, we saw nations at the World Cup, particularly the United States of America, that proved the difference for them from them and a lot of other sides. Having that effectiveness at set pieces can make you so effective within games, competitive games certainly.
Yeah, and I remember Pete Winslow, the American. If you watch the World Cup, you'll know exactly who we're referencing to, but every set piece for him
Albie Morris. Just as you're saying it, another set piece on the right-hand side. Sorry to interrupt you, but it's almost perfectly timed in the fact that a set piece on the right, fired across the box.
Yeah, and Ethan Fisher is a player that can generate so much power from a dead ball position. He's such a powerful striker of the ball, and that's what we were saying. I was saying almost like every set piece is a penalty for America, and if Newcastle can make that one of their traits and sort of trademark that in the English game, then they'll be a very, very difficult side to contend with.
So Newcastle with a 2-goal buffer. Ethan Fisher, goal scorer, turn creator, has been such an impressive addition to this Newcastle United side, who look to finally be settled. Obviously they brought in Sam Smith last season as well as Ethan Fisher. They had the departures of Jessica and Georgia Moat, but they're starting to bed as a collective unit now, and hopefully we'll see them go on to challenge the higher placements of the table.
Yeah, when you're a new football club, it's going to take you a few seasons to gain some sort of consistency within the squad. There's going to be faces that only show themselves at certain parts of the journey, but it seems like they've now got a really settled and a really young team together, which will serve them really well in this Premiership for years to come.
I agree. Morris, pick off, back to Ethan Fisher. Can't quite pick out Crawshaw on the right. Bestwick doing his utmost to fragment that Newcastle attack.
Yeah, it seems to be a really good understanding, especially between Crawshaw and Morris, and I know they're great friends off the court, and that definitely does help with on the court stuff, but they seem to be really, really tapped into each other's mentality, the two youngsters.
It's better from Sevenoaks. Mason couldn't quite get the angle, and Bestwick hadn't advanced in a position to receive that ball anyway, but that's what they need to do. Try and break the lines and break this persistent press, spearheaded by Ethan Fisher. Worth noting that Newcastle United's next game is against West Bromwich Albion, so they'll no doubt want to get 3 points here and take some momentum in that game. West Brom haven't necessarily hit the heights we know they're capable of. I've referenced it a few times over commentary. Certainly with regards to the England players fresh back from Sydney, there is a little bit of rustiness. Not many have trained as much as they would have. Chairs took a little bit longer than anticipated to return, so that's when teams like Newcastle will want to capitalise on a team like West Bromwich Albion.
Yeah, and obviously I've been in a household with an England player, and I've seen firsthand how frustrating it's been for them. You know, they've come back impassioned by the power chair football they've seen and just not quite been able to play the game as much as they would have liked, but it does seem that they're getting back into the routine now, and I'm sure especially the Aspire West Brom game later will dust off a lot of the cobwebs.
And that's why that game could be so interesting. It could go either way because the factors of lack of training, rustiness could play key factors in the outcome of that. Typically them fixtures between West Brom and Aspire are title deciders even at this early stage, because points are so cherished against any and all teams. I do have to say there will be teams within the division that will be looking to upset that duo. Teesside, to mention one, who have been superb across the 23-24 campaign following that acquisition of Ed Common. Paul Pearson blows the whistle for half-time. Newcastle United Foundation 2, Sevenoaks 0. Ethan Fisher after 14 minutes before creating the second after 17. Albie Morris with that goal. Thank you to all that are joining myself and Charlie for this game. We'll be back shortly for the second. Hello everyone, and welcome back to this soon-to-be second half in this fixture between Newcastle United and Sevenoaks, currently separated by 2 Newcastle goals scored by Fisher and Morris. Sevenoaks, I think only once across the first 20 minutes managed to break the lines and put Lee Armstrong under a little bit of pressure, but in terms of his overall involvement, 1 or 2 touches across the half is really promising viewing for Jamie Harrison. Live on Court A, Manchester United have just scored against Nomad Knights within the first 10 or so seconds of the second half. That can also be found on the Wheelchair Football Association's YouTube. All games individually scheduled, so if you want to find that one, just scroll through the live streams. Should be signified with a red live box.
Yeah, but big goal that.
As I said within commentary of the first half of this game, almost a 6-pointer already. You know the points that are contested between Sevenoaks, Nomads, Manchester, Hull and potentially Nottinghamshire are going to be so important to potential survival and or relegation at the end of the season. So that one can also be found on the WFA's YouTube. We're just about to kick off here in the second. Newcastle looking to rise through the placements of the Premiership standings. They're very much on course to secure 3 points. A dominant first half against Sevenoaks. Teams are as follows: Fisher, Armstrong, Crawshaw and Morris for Newcastle, Baxter, Alexander, Beswick and Mason for Sevenoaks. And Paul Pearson blows his whistle to get proceedings underway. Just look, Fisher plays it straight out of play, and all 3 attacking players of Newcastle condense the space, and they're looking to pen them in already in this second half. Did it so effectively across the first 20 minutes. Mason has possession. Fisher met by a black and blue wall through the gap, just took a crucial interception off the back of a Sevenoaks chair. Otherwise Morris was present for a goal scoring opportunity. Of course, delighted to be joined on commentary once again by Charlie McClellan as Harry Beswick looks to half the deficit.
Yeah, this is better from Sevenoaks, getting up the pitch a bit more. Greg getting involved with the attacking movements and just trying to, they're going to have to put some attacking energy into this game if they want to get anything from it. So it's good to see a proactive start to the second half.
As we've mentioned, Sevenoaks still chasing that first win in the Premiership. Just the 3 draws to their names that make up the 3 points that they've obtained across their 7 games. Ethan Fisher, not many real presentable options. He's probably just going to fire it into the box. Just comes off the front of Crawshaw's chair, which could have presented a real opportunity to Sevenoaks. James Mason was in plenty of space had Kyle Alexander picked him out. Crawshaw, attempt at goal, cleared off the front of Baxter's bumper. One thing that's worth watching is Ethan Fisher, his mannerisms. He's constantly communicating, pointing, directing teammates.
Crawshaw, again, unfortunately can't find the pass, but his passing in this game has been very, very good so far, in my opinion. You know, he's managed to find Morris on that back post on numerous occasions, and perhaps on a more clinical day from Albie Morris, Newcastle would have doubled their tally so far.
Alexander misses that connection with the ball. Beswick drives onto it, as does James Mason. Ethan Fisher so brilliantly positioned to prevent the danger, and Kyle Alexander rotated into Ethan Fisher there. Some leniency from our referee Paul Pearson. Could have very much been a yellow card in another referee's eyes.
Yeah, I think when You don't even hear a word from Kyle about a decision.
Off the right-hand post, Ollie Crawshaw with the follow-up effort. Splitting passes from Newcastle United. Sevenoaks just looked a little bit shell-shocked there as Crawshaw was millimetres away from scoring their third of the game.
That was... I mean, I think everyone just stopped to try to watch that ball go into the bottom corner. It was so unlucky. And then perhaps if Crawshaw hadn't, he would have been able to poke it home. But good work on the recovery from Sevenoaks to get the ball out for a corner. But that could have sealed the deal for Newcastle if that had found its way in.
Yeah, also beautifully guided goal bound from Albie Morris into that right-hand post. I think Ollie Crawshaw expected it to roll over the line, so wasn't as primed and ready as he probably could have been to capitalise, but as we said, the warning signs most definitely there for Baxter and Alexander. Ooh. Very feisty battle between Fisher and Alexander. Something that's so effective to both of their players' games, particularly Fisher. Morris into Crawshaw, back to Morris on the right. Sam Smith still yet to feature in this game. I suspect that change will potentially happen in the next 3 or 4 minutes. Certainly if I'm Jamie Harrison. These 4 players present have been absolutely superb, and I think you've got to give me credit for that one, Charlie.
Yeah.
With, as I was just discussing, Sam Smith's potential involvement, he's brought into the action in place of Albie Morris.
I think Jamie Harrison has an earpiece or something listening to our commentary, because it's happened a couple of times. I was talking about set pieces and then Newcastle scored a set piece, and now you've just manifested a substitution, so we're on a roll.
Good work from Bestwick to just readjust and focus the attention on the Newcastle goal. Once again, 5.5 minutes into this half, Armstrong, little to no involvement, which will no doubt be to the delight of Jamie Harrison. Alexander down to Bestwick, just can't quite get the connection and or timing on that effort. Out of play for a goal kick. Intrigued to see what Sam Smith can bring to this. Albie Morris extremely effective in his appearance. Intercepted by Alexander. Fisher into Smith. Back to Fisher. Off the front of Baxter's chair. A chance to counter now for James Mason. Fisher brilliantly gets back to halt the momentum. Can't remember the last time I saw Newcastle play with such confidence. Just having that knowledge and understanding that Fisher will be so adept and competent in the defensive areas of the court, gives that freedom for their attacking players to just try and exploit the spaces and get into the best positions possible when he inevitably regains possession. Yeah, correct decision from the referee. Just took a little touch off of Ollie Crawshaw's chair.
Yeah, I agree.
The ball needs to be repositioned.
Yeah, I mean, the message for Sevenoaks will still be just to get the next goal, make the last sort of 12 minutes of this game as uncomfortable as they can for Newcastle, because right now Newcastle are sort of in cruise control.
Yeah, it's more the fact that they just haven't created them opportunities. They have no real attacking outlet, and that's more a credit to Ethan Fisher. He's read the game so brilliantly, so even when the ball has potentially broken to Mason or Bestwick in the wide advanced positions. He's prevented it. 2-on-1. One of the first of the game. It's just commentated on Villa Rockets versus Leeds, as well as a number across yesterday's action. Very few 2-on-1s awarded across the day, which is brilliant to see. Teams trying to play open, expansive football, and the officials trying to support that as well. They don't want to get drawn into the congested areas. That's better from Sevenoaks. Mason, no real direction on that return pass. Just when they make the court as wide as possible, Bestwick far on the right, Mason far on the left, and Alexander's job so important in the centre to just connect the two players together.
Yeah, and I think, as you said, they've scored 3 goals this season, so I think that they've just a bit devoid of attacking confidence. I think if they did have a bit more confidence in their ability to move the ball and their ability to attack, they would find some luck, because they have some very, very good players who are very, very technically adept, so they really should be creating more opportunities than they do.
Mason, back to Baxter. Looks like he's just switched responsibilities momentarily with Alexander. You can see they're trying to be a little bit more brave, but there's huge gaps at the back that they've left open. Mason trying to attack. Armstrong called into defensive duties properly for the first time this game, 30 minutes in. This is better from Sevenoaks.
I like that a lot from Harry Bestwick there. Just took that ball with him, drew it out, and then had the composure to then put it back into a dangerous area, and that's a lot better from Sevenoaks.
It's the risk versus reward factor now. They're being far braver in attack. They could have potentially done this a lot earlier. Lee Armstrong, without question, the most advanced he's been all game. Get a nosebleed.
See, this is where, you think, could Armstrong come and create a bit more of a square from this set piece, so they have more options for Ethan Fisher?
Now they've got that 2-goal buffer, most certainly, but they've been so comfortable all game that I'm sure they're just happy to let things carry on as is. Sam Smith hasn't had much involvement, and I think that credit needs to be given to Sevenoaks. They've prevented him being a real option on this left-hand side, Newcastle's right. Fisher across the court. Sam Smith not there to receive, but capitalises on that loose ball from James Mason. Fisher going to look to Crawshaw, cleared by Baxter. Good game of football this.
Yeah, the second half, it had sort of potential at half-time to be a bit of stalemate, but both sides still are looking to create opportunities and still looking to score goals, which is making for good viewing.
Smith with an attempt at goal, well wide of the left-hand post. Baxter into Alexander. Crawshaw there to defend, and it, unfortunately for him, just flies over his chair. Armstrong has to clear. Fisher just drops deeper. Now Armstrong occupying that central role. Brilliantly picks out Ollie Crawshaw. There was a big gap between Baxter and Alexander that Baxter just about readjusted to prevent. Crawshaw once again cleared by Baxter. It's been fairly relentless, certainly across the entirety of the game.
I think just needed a little bit more power there, Crawshaw, on this finish, and it would have gone easily through the 2 chairs.
Just over 7 minutes remaining. Remains Newcastle 2, Sevenoaks 0. James Mason just shakes his head, didn't quite get the power on that pick-off back to Alexander, so placed under some pressure. Crawshaw attempt at goal, just cleared by the back of Kyle Alexander's chair. Incredible performance from Ethan Fisher. Without question, the player of the match so far. As he shapes up for this corner kick. Crawshaw, the most presentable option. Over to Sam Smith. Guides it across the face of goal. Baxter has to reverse to prevent Crawshaw in the follow-up effort. The ball is still live. Unlucky for Sam Smith. Looking for his 8th goal of the season. Down to Fisher. Superb football from Newcastle as Fisher just finds the gaps. He does so there. Alexander had it covered. It's a real pleasure to watch. Just playing without fear. Difficult game for Sevenoaks. Crawshaw, immediate pick-off, just brushes the left-hand post. That was very wide of its intended mark.
Yeah. Very, very dangerous play. And that's an interesting substitution. Carl Alexander coming off to be replaced by Miles Miller.
Yeah, that is an interesting sub. Looks like Harry Bestwick will take responsibility in the central role, vacated by Carl Alexander. Miles Miller now on the left. Once again, goal kick from Greg Baxter. It's intercepted by Ollie Crawshaw.
Yeah, this is sort of mimetic of the game as a whole. Sevenoaks really just trying their best to get out, but they just can't get it around the black and white shirts that are just swarming their half.
Fisher. A shield clearance up the court from Harry Bestwick, not before referee Paul Pearson had awarded a 2-on-1 infringement in Newcastle's favour. So with 4.5 minutes left to be played, Newcastle will probably be making their final substitution. Ollie Crawshaw, who's had a fantastic game, comes off. Albie Morris, the goal scorer for Newcastle's second, comes back on. Smith, cleared by Baxter. Fisher. Yeah, starting to get really congested in the final few minutes. Frustratingly, once again, for Adam McAvoy's Sevenoaks side, the infringement is awarded to Newcastle. So an indirect free kick will resume play. Fisher, Smith and Morris just having a little discussion off the ball. Be interesting to see what they do here. Smith in a lot of space in this bottom left-hand corner. Morris more well marked to the right, but does well to take possession and guide it over to Smith. Miller has to support his defenders.
I think the focus now for Sevenoaks may be on that huge game against Man United later, you know. That's a real presentable opportunity for them to get some points on the board, to get some goals in the bag, and to put in a much better performance. And so if they can show some of the redeeming qualities that they have shown at points of this second half for a longer amount of time during that game, they may be in for a really good chance.
Yeah, that they will. I believe it's still 1-0 to Manchester United on Court A. Only a minute left to be played on that one, so they'll be taking some real momentum into that final game of the weekend against Sevenoaks. So could arguably say they're the more favourable of the two to secure 3 points. On paper, most definitely. Final few minutes here. Newcastle cruising their way to arguably the easiest 3 points they've acquired all season. Smith just forces the ball past Harry Bestwick. Baxter just switches with Bestwick. Off a Newcastle chair. Out of play for a goal kick.
Good defending from Harry Bestwick there, just staying composed, staying calm. Not been able to assert himself in this game as he would like, Harry Bestwick. But in the little moments where he has managed to get the ball and the little times where he has shown quality, I think he has been Sevenoaks' most promising player going forward, in my opinion.
It's just that isolation, isn't it? They haven't had much to feed off in them attacking areas. That's where we once again talk about anticipation. When you're isolated for such large parts of the game, if the ball ever does enter your vicinity, try and be effective in the actions that you're trying to adopt. Smith to Fisher, across the face of goal, just wide of the right post. You've got to say that if Fisher carries on this level of performance across the Premiership division, it'll be sooner rather than later that he's one of the starting, if not featuring, England players. I know Colin Gordon rates him so highly, and you can see why.
Yeah, he's an excellent player, excellent attitude. You know, he communicates really well, which is something that Colin Gordon wants in his England squad. Players that talk to each other, players that understand each other, and he has such a great understanding of the game. And I think for people that are a fan of running football, I always compare him to a player like Declan Rice for Arsenal, where, you know, sometimes goes unnoticed the work he does and the way he holds this Newcastle team together, but he really is just the glue between those players. And of course Newcastle have talents. Crawshaw and Sam Smith are two excellent wingers, but without Fisher holding it down for them, they would not have the platform from which to perform their magic.
No, completely agree. Box to box, crucial and key in all attacking and defensive phases of play. Scored one in this game, created the other, and as we have ticked over into additional time, he will most certainly spearhead this 3 points. The referee Paul Pearson blows the whistle for full time. A dominant performance from Newcastle United, who weren't troubled once. Lee Armstrong, it's arguably the easiest 40 minutes he will ever play, and that will be very much to the frustration of Sevenoaks, who have quality. It's just about unlocking that potential and trying to iron out them individual errors. So it was Fisher, after 14 minutes, opened the scoring before providing for Albie Morris. 3 minutes later, no goals in the second half. Full credit to Sevenoaks for that fact. They were better defensively in the second, but just couldn't create anything to trouble Newcastle or change the scoreline. But thank you to all that have joined myself and Charlie for this one. Hope you can join our streams for other games in game week 2 of the PTC Therapeutics Premiership.
Thank you.